Hi there, it's Danica Kopp. Welcome back to Therapy Thursday. Unfortunately, today's Friday, and I did take last week off. I'm struggling. I'm really struggling with the state of our country in the US. I'm struggling with what it means to be white and of privilege, and how do I support Black friends? How do I support that Black lives do matter? How do I have a voice, and how do I help? So I've struggled with kind of what do I say? What can I say? And my sister encouraged me that I do have a voice, and that I need to just use my voice. So I want to be like so raw and so honest, and I really ask that you be gentle with me, because this is hard. I grew up in very white Massachusetts. I grew up with really no diversity. When I think back on my high school class, I remember a black girl. I don't remember her name. I remember some adopted Asian folks, and I remember a young man who his name is Hispanic-ish Asian, so I'm guessing he was diverse, but he looked white, and that was the diversity. My high school class was like 275 kids, and that was it. So I was not exposed to kind of any kind of racial diversity. My mom worked in the inner city of Worcester, and she worked with very poor folks doing home nursing. So she certainly did her best to expose us to that, and to help develop empathy for, you know, the lack of resources that people had in the world, and how lucky and how very privileged I was, in terms of really, I never needed anything. I never did. And I rarely really wanted for anything. We were very lucky. And, you know, we weren't spoiled. My parents were very generous with charities, and, you know, we lived a very, very kind of middle class but privileged life. You know, I was involved in activities that my parents paid for. I certainly had, you know, braces, and I needed special shoes and orthotics that weren't covered by insurance, and that was never an issue. I had multiple surgeries, and I know there was like deductibles my parents paid, and that was never an issue. So I mean, we were very comfortable. But certainly was exposed, you know, to poverty and to, you know, disparity. And I became a social worker because I love helping people. And I had a foster brother who, you know, had a social worker, and she would come to the house, and I just really wanted to get into something that I could just make a difference in the world. That was my goal in life. I didn't really know what that looked like. I just knew that I wanted to help others. And as I became a social worker, I certainly became exposed to, you know, more diversity in the world. I would even say my college experience, I went to a very small Catholic college in the middle of nowhere, Massachusetts, and even there, I would say, I mean, I certainly people have come out as gay, but I'm not sure how comfortable they were being gay in college. So I wasn't really aware of gayness then, and I again, like, the diversity in college was the foreign students who were, you know, obviously had means to go to college in the United States. So it was really like when I got into my career that I began to really be exposed to, you know, people of color, people of different ethnic, racial, religious backgrounds. I was a working professional, and, you know, had been taught about race and diversity, and had been taught to really challenge my own views, my own biases, my own kind of, you know, internal prejudices that I really feel, for me personally, were more out of just a lack of exposure. And so just, it's different, and different can be scary when you first experience different. Not because I really was scared, and I was very conscious to really challenge those thoughts that I would have. It really wasn't until we moved to Virginia. We live right outside of DC, and it's very urban. And it was really until we moved here that I've been exposed to, and that I would really say I have a diverse group of friends. And that's been amazing. because it's hard to hate people up close. That's a Brené Brown quote. Move in. And the more that I get to know people of different backgrounds and different, ethnic and racial makeups, they're people. They're beautiful. They're loving. They're caring. They go home. They put their pants on one leg at a time. Since living in Virginia, I had the opportunity to go away with a colleague who is African American, and we spent the night together in a hotel. And even for me and my privilege, just watching how different our nighttime routines are was just such an eye-opener. You don't think about what goes into taking care of black skin or black hair. And I certainly had that experience when I directed a foster care agency, and we would have, white parents caring for African American children, and not knowing how to do their hair and not knowing how to take care of their skin. And that's so important. And so we're here today, and it's painful. It's really painful. And I think it's more personal to me because my husband's also a police officer. And he's a good police officer. He's someone who absolutely would and has spoken up when the brutality gets a little too much by a colleague. He's somebody who's a very even, good-tempered. And my husband became a police officer at age 42. He had a whole career ahead of time. Knowing what we know about brain development at this stage of the game, which is only about, I would say 15, maybe 20 years old. Adolescent brains are developing until about the age of 26 years old. That means that the frontal lobe, our decision making, our ability to think through situations, our ability to predict outcomes, our ability to kind of rationalize is not fully functioning and fully developed until the age of 25 to 26, especially in men. Yet, I know in the county my husband works, they hire at 21. They're not ready to be police officers at 21. They're just not. I think that we need to look to advocate towards not allowing folks to become police officers until they're in their late 20s to early 30s. That just needs to be across the board. That way, we're hiring fully developed brains in our police officers, and we're training fully developed brains. A brain that has the capacity to be a hothead, who is then given the power of a police officer and a weapon, that's going to do a little bit of brain changing as their brain completes that development. And I'm wondering, I don't do science, I don't do research, but I'm wondering if that's part of our problem. And so I think that is a part of our solution, is to allow brains to fully develop before we put them in positions of power, like being a police officer. I think the military is a little bit different, because the military, you're very closely supervised, and your supervisor's right there like a parent, kind of, keeping you on track. So I think the military is different. I don't think you need to be 25 or 26 to join the military. But I do think to be a police officer on the streets, where generally you're alone, maybe with one or two others, you need to have a fully developed brain. Okay, off that soapbox. I want to challenge all of you, especially those of you who, like me, are white and of privilege, to really take a step back and think about how the history of our culture in America has really undervalued people of color, Black people. They were brought here as slaves and considered to not have any rights. And they fought hard to get rights that they didn't get till not that long ago. And that even though they quote unquote have rights, they're still targeted. They're still identified as less than. And again, I think it's so easy for those of us who are in very white areas to do that, because they're different, and different is scary. And so I challenge you to really kind of look inside yourself and think about kind of the views that you hold. And I want to challenge you to think about poverty and lack of general resources. So the ability to get a good education. And that is not just having good schools and good teachers, but that means that parents aren't worrying about how they're going to make ends meet and aren't losing homes and having to move, which disrupts schooling when kids change schools year to year, or change counties or cities, and so, or states, and so learning is disrupted. It goes back to poverty with not having enough to eat, which makes it really hard to be full and your brain be functioning because it's been fed. It goes back to the ability to access medical care, and trusting that medical care, not long ago, we tested on Black people, white people, not me. I did not do that. I have no part of that. I think that was horrendous. But, there was testing done, medical testing without their knowledge. That is atrocious. Can you imagine being a guinea pig without having any knowledge of that and being studied and you were never signed up? That's not okay. But we did that in this country not that long ago. So not that long ago, within the past 100 years, not that long ago, within my parents' generation, not that long ago. So I challenge you to really think about how poverty and unemployment, and the inability to get a good paying job affects those things. Now with schools being out and, older kids in poor, racially diverse mostly, there's white families going through this too, but it's poverty is the issue. That parents are having to work minimal wage jobs and multiple jobs, so older kids are forced to take care of younger kids, whether there's school or not, which means that they don't have the resources to be good parents, and there may not be internet or enough computers or the ability of an adult to help a child to learn, and they may not have enough to eat, and so then how do they learn? And the cycle just keeps going and gets worse and worse and worse. And then we wonder why there's crime, or why drug use, or to escape, or drug use as a method to make money becomes attractive, because that's the only way when there's no other jobs. And many of these poor areas, there's no jobs. And the jobs that there are not enough to live on. And I know how hard I work to make the money I make, and we're not wealthy. We're okay, but we're not wealthy. I can't imagine working this hard and still not being able to pay the rent. And never mind add anything else that I might need to get: food, utilities, clothing, transportation, medical costs. Those things all add up, and there's not the resources. That's the issue, not blackness, whiteness, with the Black community. It's poverty. Poverty's the problem. I want to challenge you to think about what people around you say about other races. As a white person, we need to challenge that. It's not okay to put down people because of the color of their skin, because of what they believe religious-wise, because of who they love. It's not okay. Those of us that are in higher societal norms, I'm white, I'm middle class, I'm heterosexual, I'm educated. We need to be their voice. We need to be their voice to others like us, not to them. Their voices are loud enough to speak for them. My job is to speak to others like me. And please join me in speaking to others like us. We need to educate each other and allow our friends of color, our minority friends, they need to be able to speak their truth and their stories. They don't need our help. We just need to listen to them. But we need to speak to each other. We need to call each other. We need to stop allowing this to continue. Thanks for listening. Thank you. I will be back next week, hopefully with a better topic. Remember, it's really hard to hate people up close. Move in. Listen. Don't listen to respond. Listen to hear. Hear their heart. That's my message for today. Happy Day After Therapy Thursday. I'm Danica Kopp. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in Virginia and a licensed independent clinical social worker in Massachusetts. Please like, subscribe, please share, please keep talking. Thanks.